Welcome back, here we go again. Continuing on this puzzle streak from last time, where we got to 15 relatively quickly. Trying to solve puzzles both accurately and quickly. Let's get into it. I can already see the answer here. We can take this knight with a check, and when he recaptures, we've got a fork that wins the rook and leaves us in the clear. In this example, I don't see the answer immediately, but I do see a couple of possible checks. This one seems like it comes with the additional benefit of doubling back and winning a rook. And I would say, looking at the rest of the position, that's going to be the correct answer. So that's nice. Let's try and answer a few more of these correctly. And then we're going to play a training game. So here we're white. Can we take? He probably has to take back like this. We can't push because he's in time to capture this pawn. But what if we push the pawn immediately and allow him to capture our rook? Then we can actually get a queen with check. And that might be the way to do this. That might be the way that we need to do this. Just push. Now, is it actually good though? So we push, he takes the rook, we come here. I'll just show. Push, he takes the rook, we get a queen check. Where does he go with the king? Basically, he can go to any of these squares. And for that reason, it might seem a little bit difficult to calculate what to do next. But if he goes to any of these two, our queen can come here, and we're going to pick up the rook. So actually, these two are out of the question. So what about these two? Well, if he goes to those ones, we could do what exactly? Let's start first looking at this one. I guess there we would have... Well, I'm not 100% sure, but it does look decent, but I'd like to be sure. So I do want to be quick. Is it going to be nice to get a queen here? Giving up a rook, but getting a queen. Having a queen versus this, this, and this, and then having two extra pawns. On the basis of it, it should be good. It should be good because we got just too much material. So although I couldn't quite see the way forward, it really should have been good. Now here there's a check. It's almost mate, but he takes the knight. That's the only downside. Whereas check is really nice because it forces him back here or here. And then we can play this check and win the queen. So one, oh, or you can sacrifice the queen immediately, I suppose. All right, we've only got a couple more here, I think, before we jump into a training game. We just want to be nice and limber and warm before we start. Now, there looks like it's a fork on these two pieces. He can give up the knight, but nevertheless, we reinstate the fork, and that's basically got to be good. In this case, we take the rook. All right, now we are black. We've got this check, which is exceptionally nice. It actually forces him here, at which point in time we could give another check, but then he can come back. We can go check, and when he comes here, we can come here, check him, and win the rook. So that's nice. All right, in this one, we can come here, and we're threatening mate. Is there anything you can do about that? Not that I can necessarily see. Is there any other ways we can go about this, though? We can come here, check. He takes with the rook, though, so that's not going to work. This is a nice move. How does he stop the mate from occurring? He can come here, but we just take the bishop. We just take the bishop straight away. In fact, if he moves the bishop anywhere, we can take the rook behind. So I really like this idea. So we can take this rook. See, we can't give the mate, but we can take the rook. Now this is pinned as well. Everything's looking pretty nice so far. We're almost ready to jump into a training game. We'll do this for about another minute. Here is a nice check, forcing him here, but that's actually not possible. So actually it forces him here. And at that point, how do we follow up? We've got this check, and that looks, my friends, like mate. Oh, it's not mate, but it's getting pretty damn close. So how do we finish him off here? This is all cut off. This is all cut off. This square is cut off too, so it looks like this will be mate. Very nice. Let's get up to 25 if we can. We've got to check here if we want that one. But what else can we do here? We can give this check. That doesn't seem to have make a lot of sense. There's this to attack his queen. That might be better after check, then attack the queen. I'm not really sure what we're standing to achieve there. So this is slightly difficult. This does hit the queen, but after he takes the rook, don't love it. All right, so what do we do? Do we just take this and when he takes back, take his rook and say we've got way too much material? I think so. I think so for sure. All right, and now we have a little endgame position, but our pawn is looking very close. Our king's here supporting, so why don't we just go push? And when he moves up, we take one more step, and then even though he can push, we push with check. We're going to get our queen first. This is an easy win. And I'm going to now pause it, and we're going to go over to a training game, so we'll see you there shortly. All right, time for a training game. We'll do a 15-minute game with 10 seconds every move. And again, we have d4, d5, just like in the last game. And again, I'm black. But in the last game, we had a queen's gambit accepted. This time around, we don't. We have this early bishop f4 played. And I'm not going to spend heaps of time here. I'm going to play solidly. I'm going to play rather quickly. And I'm going to use my time in a much more clever way than what I maybe normally do. All right. That's the goal anyway. So here, there's various options. This is potentially a nice move already, but we certainly don't have to play that yet. We could also take this if we want. Lots of options. Again, I want to use my time in a better way than what I normally do. I think this is perfectly fine. If he takes this, I can always take back. If he does that, I think I'm just going to castle. Again, I can just meet that move like so. All right, now, how do I want to proceed? This knight might be a bit stranded if I play this c4 move, because where's he going? He can't come here, can't come here. I mean, he'd want to move his knight down here first, I suppose. Why don't I move my knight in there? I might play this a6 move first just to restrict his bishop from ever going there. Or I might put my bishop here first just to make him make another move. If he comes here, maybe that's when I'll trade, or maybe I can trade now. Like I said, this is also an option. All these various moves are possible. I don't want to spend too much time, so I'm going to play this. And if he brings his bishop down, why should I be afraid? My knight's not pinned. Okay. Now that he's put his bishop here, it's tempting now to play this pawn forward and just make the bishop move again. But I certainly don't have to play that. Now, it's also interesting that he hasn't castled yet. Fair enough. I could try and open the position a little bit. He's likely to take back with his pawn. Then I can just put my bishop here and say that I've pinned this knight. That's a possible way of playing. It's certainly a possible way of playing. But I've got plenty of options. I can also take, and if he takes like this, I can do something with my queen. I could do something with my queen right away, except that I would lose this bishop. So I could take, and when he takes back, I could come here. But, you know, I want to be very solid, and I want to be very, well, what's the word? Quick. So I think taking, if he takes with the knight, I can take, and then regardless of how he takes back, I'm just not sure that I'm really gaining much in any of those examples. So, and I want to gain something. So I could attack this bishop like this with this knight. If he then takes, though, and I take, what have I really gained? And he can jump this knight away with a tempo. I think that's not what I would refer to as particularly solid. So, I do need to come up with something soon. Many decent moves here, and there's many decent moves. I just need to basically pick one of them. This is not a bad move, although it opens up his rook towards my king, and I don't like that, since he's already got pressure there. So I could go take, he takes back, and then I blunt this diagonal. Then he can jump his knight in, further putting pressure here, but as long as my knight's here, I'm under control, but I don't see the need to go down that line at all, giving him any of those possibilities. So why don't I just take once, and if he comes back here, I can just, you know, do something a bit different. Or maybe I can just play something like a6 and look to expand. That move probably can't be bad. That's what I'm going to do instead. I'm going to bide my time, see what he wants to do. Now, it's true that I'm a higher rated player than he is, but that does not mean I'm necessarily going to win this game. What I can do now is take the knight, but then he can take with the pawn. Supported by the bishop, he'd be forking my bishop and my knight. I could take with the bishop, and then when he takes back with the pawn, he's only hitting my knight, and my knight can then move. But what I could also do is start by taking this pawn. If I take this pawn, he could take a knight, hitting my queen. So I don't love that necessarily, but now, I also don't have to necessarily do anything. I can just move my queen up here, for instance, or here, at which point I am threatening to take, because only he takes back, I can take again. So this move looks relatively perfectly fine. I don't really see a problem with this move. He's probably going to put his other knight over here to support this knight. So maybe I do start like this, and after he takes, maybe I can then come here like I said before, or maybe I can bring my queen here immediately to put pressure on this pawn. And when he somehow deals with that pressure, likely with the rook, I can then take once, he takes again, and then basically play on from there. Lots of different possibilities. I can even just put my bishop here, but then he takes, I take back. That still looks fine, I think. I can bring this guy there. There's lots of options on the board for me, and they're all good, so I basically just need to choose one of them. I think this one's pretty nice, because then in future, let's see. What would Grandmaster say? Well, I wish I knew. Wouldn't that be nice? They'd say don't spend too much time. So if I haven't thought of a move by the 10th minute, I'm going to play something. That's one thing. The second thing is, be patient. Being patient's generally a nice idea. Taking, and he takes with the pawn, I can then bring this knight here, and I'm putting quite a bit of pressure on that pawn. I am putting quite a bit of pressure on that pawn. He can defend the pawn, but I can attack it again. You know what? I actually quite like that. I think I like that. Take, he takes, I come here. Attacking the pawn twice, with the potential of adding a third attacker. He'll only be defending it once. Now, he could defend it with his pawn, that's true, but doesn't that seem like he's taking on a bit of a strange pawn structure there? Now, also true that I might be in a bit of a boxed out position there. I might be a bit boxed out myself. Ooh, I haven't played my move. So I'm going to play this because it's less committal. It comes with just a very basic threat. If he takes this, I take this. And I'm just threatening to go take, or take is perfectly nice. I've got a real threat, so he can't castle. He has to do something. And in the meantime, if I want to, I could just come back and just wait for an opportunity. I could play this, I could do things, but I haven't committed necessarily. And I used a little bit more time than I wanted, but not tons and tons and tons. I'm not afraid of this move, not afraid of this move, not afraid of this move. And let's just see what he is actually going to do. If he takes this pawn, like I said, I'll take this. So I actually think this was probably a decent move. This can come in future. Maybe this can come in future. Or he supports the knight, but looks like this king side is getting pretty open. Does look like that king side's getting rather open here. So how do I now want to proceed? I can take this. I could certainly take this off the board to start with. I could still consider taking here once, and when he takes back, take here, and then he takes back again. I mean, those moves are possible, but maybe not necessarily amazing. I could come here with my knight, threaten take, but again, not necessarily amazing. Maybe I just go take, but then if he takes back this way, he might get his rook over here one day. Again, take doesn't necessarily make a lot of sense either. So I need to come up with something. That's relatively obvious. Question is, what do I want to do? I could also bring my knight back this way and just prepare to play something like f6 and push this knight out of here by force. Say, where are you going to go? That's a possibility. This knight could also land up here, but it sacrifices a pawn at this point. At this point anyway, it sacrifices a pawn. My bishop's not doing a lot. For that reason, I might want to play something like this. I think that's probably okay. Anything else that he might be threatening that I need to be aware of? At the moment, I don't think so. At the moment, I don't think so. So since this is open, I'm going to play this move. Again, I don't want to spend forever. I didn't want to put my bishop here and just let him take, although I think that would be fine for me as well. I just want to play a move that's probably fine, that's structurally sound, I believe. This side of the board is, getting very open. But I would like it to be open if he's planning to castle here. And if he's planning to castle over here, well, that's basically already open. And therefore, I think he's producing possible weaknesses, such as this pawn, which is a backwards pawn. Can't be protected by any pawns. These ones are already ahead of it, so they can't go back and protect it. Therefore, it's something of a structural weakness. He can push it forward. But, again, if he does that, this whole position is just becoming very open, and that might be dangerous for him. And by pushing it forward, he's not producing any threats. Like if he takes, I just take back. No harm done. So I'm trying to just argue that my position's very solid, and I'm going to bide my time playing solid moves, keeping myself with enough time on the clock that when things do start to get more complicated later, that I'm still going to be in a good position. Now, I can shut everything down by playing the simple move h5 if I wish, which then also gives my knight other possibilities. If I let him keep pushing this pawn, it might become a bit dangerous. So this is certainly something that comes to mind, basically right away. Is there any reason why I wouldn't play that? Well, if I play this pawn itself might become weak. If, for instance, he plays something like this, and then, well, I don't see how it becomes weak. So I am going to put a stop to his idea there. And if I want to in future, I think I could always play g6 to strengthen that, although then you could argue my king side is becoming a bit open. But I think this move in and of itself doesn't hurt. And now this weakness, he's allowing me to attack it, if that's what I want to do. His king's still in the center of the board. He wants to bring this knight in here, but from there I don't think it necessarily does much. And if I come here immediately, I'm attacking the knight here. He can take, I take, hitting this knight, and the knight jumps in, and my pawn here might become weak. So lots of things there to consider. I can play this move now, and if he takes, I take again. And that's probably pretty nice, because I'm also hitting his bishop. And if he trades, I think that's really nice. Nice enough that I'm playing it. I guard this square as well, but more importantly, I'm attacking this bishop, which doesn't have a lot of spaces to go to. And if in the future, I can now play this f6 idea if I wanted to get this knight out. I can play a g6 to protect this pawn if I really want. I'm blockading his backwards pawn with my knight. So that's just nice. And again, if he takes, firstly, he's given up a bishop for a knight. And although I take back and take on a doubled pawn structure, I do it with a tempo on this knight, which has to move. And after it moves, I could play f6, moving this knight away, and then f5 or f5 straight away. And this pawn structure would be as highlighted in red and would be pretty solid. So I don't think I'm doing badly there. I still have plenty of time. He's got almost double the time I do. But it's not all about time. It ain't all about time here. His king's in the middle of the board. This side of the board is pretty open. This side of the board could well become open. I'm structurally sound. Even if this pawn gets lost to something like a queen, I think my king would be okay. Maybe I want to move this rook in anticipation of the future in case I ever want to move my king as well to take up residence on f8, and then maybe e7 and possibly even if I needed to squirrel away. But here we go. He's going to actually give me this bishop if I want, and then he's going to plan to take back with his king. So that's something that I could do if I want. Certainly not something that I need to do, but I could also take here right now. Because now that my knight is here, guarding these squares, I think it's probably time to open this sucker up. And you'll note I didn't actually calculate anything there. I didn't calculate anything there because instinctively, this being very open, this being very open, his king being in the center, my king being very safe, my pieces being nicely positioned, opening the position should benefit me. Taking a pawn, so it's a pretty violent move. He's going to have to take back some way. I didn't want to spend lots of time. So he takes back this way, keeping this diagonal shut, which is probably what he should do. Now I could take this knight if I want. And if he takes back with this pawn, well, the f-file is becoming more and more open. But another thing I could do is just play now f6. f6 hits this knight, and the knight would have to move. Taking this knight, I take back. This pawn's under attack. Keep that in mind. So that's an option. That's an option. Another option might even be to play b4. So that's also an option. Certainly an option here is to take this bishop off the board, forcing his king over here where it loses castle rights, stuck in this very open portion of the board. That might be pretty nice. Take, and then take. He would probably take with either the pawn or the knight. Not 100% sure. But things in general are looking pretty good. You know what I'm going to do though? I'm just going to develop this bishop as we'd earlier planned to do. So that now after f6, if he takes this knight, I can take back with the bishop, maintaining this queen-bishop battery towards his potential king. Again, a relatively quick move. He's still got double the time I do. So even though I feel I've been playing quick, or quicker than normal, trying to emphasize playing relatively quickly, apparently I'm still playing slow compared to my opponents. But what's he going to do? So if he takes, of course, as mentioned before, I'll take back with a tempo on this knight. And when the knight moves, I will eventually defend this pawn when need be. Should be noted when this knight moves, it will be moving and uncovering an attack from the queen against this pawn. And the queen coming here, as well as the knight here, would be very dangerous. It'd be threatening a checkmate here. So that needs to be paid sufficient attention to. So for instance, take, he comes here. But, you know, that's why I say in that scenario I could play g6, defending this pawn, and preventing his queen from coming in. And I think there everything's just fine. Not only that, but after take, if he does come here, then f6 actually is a fork against both of his knights. And even if he brings the queen in, I can take this knight. So he goes for this straight away. But if I take this knight, he's going to take with this pawn, opening up his rook. So it's probably not a bad move. Probably not the worst move that he could have done. But do I need to be afraid? I don't think so. I really don't think I need to be too afraid of what we're seeing here, but I do certainly need to be aware of it. Now I can take here, but he can just bring the queen in and threaten this checkmate. So that's definitely something I need to be aware of. Maybe now's a nice chance to actually play f5, just secure my knight. Gives him this piece though here, which not something I want to do. Maybe I even bring my knight back and just defend this pawn after all. Okay, interesting stuff. I do think I'm probably perfectly... I can always take here, and when he takes back, I can play g6. Does he have any sacrifices there? I would say probably not, but possibly. It is possible there. It's a very dangerous position. So I'm going to take just a moment here to make sure I'm doing the right thing. This is probably the right thing. Just bring this knight back. Or maybe just playing g6 here. g6 here. Then he takes, and takes, winning a pawn. But that's not going to be the end of the story. So if g6 takes, it's not the end of the story. But it's not really how I want the story to go either. So what am I going to do? Kind of think I do bring the knight back. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to bring my knight back and just defend this pawn. Yeah, he's got two knights aimed at this piece, but I've got it defended many a time. He can give a check here, but he just loses a piece in so doing. Or I can just move to the side if I don't want to take it. This I can just probably, in that case, take this. And then when he takes back, I take with my knight. So I think we're okay. I think we're all right. We just need to find a way to unravel, but the position's still fine. I think this is probably one of those positions where even if he did have some kind of an advantage, he's going to have to play this very accurately, and one wrong step and he could just unwind. Whereas I think it's also somewhat true for my position, in that one wrong step and I could unwind, but in general my position is very solid, so it should be fine for me to be able to keep it solid. It should be fine for me to stay solid here. And as things get traded, some of his structural weaknesses might make themselves more manifest. Like this backwards pawn. This is a backwards pawn. Quite a weakness, I would say, for his position. My bishop hasn't really come to life yet, but in the future it may. It certainly may in the future. We'll just have to see. I might sit my knight up here in future, maybe even after I take this knight off, which is possibly becoming a nicer and nicer looking move. I might just play g6 in future. Lots of different options for me. And we'll just see. Maybe I'll bring this knight across and stick this knight into the position somewhere as well. That might be an idea. Knight e7 and then knight g6. So if he ever takes the knight, I take back. I think in most of these cases, I do kind of want to take this knight off the board, even though it allows him to have this big pawn chain and get a tempo on my knight. My knight, okay, so he's come in with a move, which seems odd, but I understand it. If I take, I don't think he wants to just take, let me take, and then come in with his queen check, forcing me back. I don't think that's the idea. But it strikes me as wrong, so we're going to try and work this out for a minute. If I take, is he just going to bring the queen in immediately? Well, maybe, but if he does, then don't I just play g6? Then if he takes again, I take, my queen joins the party. I think this works, I'm going to take it. I think he's blundered. I think he's blundered there. I think we've bade our time. You know, basically tread water in a tense, relatively even position, but stayed solid and waited for our opponent to lose patience or to lash out or to make some kind of a mistake. And I do feel, whether I'm going about executing it the right way, I do feel that he probably made a mistake. I thought this might be his idea, but I'm pretty sure g6 keeps everything under wraps. He is threatening checkmate. That's his idea. He's threatening checkmate. And if I just move the knight back even, even just moving the knight back is a very nice move, now that I think about it. Because moving the knight back hits the queen, and it also guards the square he would otherwise like to mate me on. There's no mate here, of course. But the other move that I had in mind was g6, just hitting the queen. g6 is a little bit less sound positionally. Positionally less sound. So I am actually going to go with this move after all, because it's positionally more sound. It attacks the queen, keeps these pawns around my king intact. And on the next move, I can consider playing something like this if I wish, just to block this bishop. Once I block that bishop, keep in mind, I've just won a knight for the sake of a pawn. I don't think he has what it takes here. Now, the game's not over, but he's committed to a course of action he cannot go back from now. If I want, I can still play g6. I could bring my knight back in future, but he cannot get his knight back. Now he wants to push this pawn forward. That is evident. But it's not necessarily going to be easy for him to do, because I can play this move, which attacks the queen. And if he takes my my knight, well, at first I can take his bishop. That's one thing. And I've already taken a bishop, so that's very nice. But, you know, the other thing is I'd be threatening, even after he takes the knight, I could play f6 immediately, hitting the queen again. And once the queen moves, well, then I can take this knight like this. So those are all possibilities. And I think they're all good possibilities. So I think this is probably a really nice move. I've only got 2 minutes on the clock, so I do have to be careful. Also a possibility here is to take this knight first. And once he takes back, then I jump up here. But I think this is just good straight away. Hit the queen, we get a trade, and then he can't push this forward because he's going to get forked. And if he goes to something like, yeah, I'm going to play this. Also, the trades should benefit me in principle. And the reason they should benefit me in principle is because I'm already up a material. So if we trade everything off, it's going to just be a king and me with 2 extra points of material. So trades in general and in principle benefit me. So I'm not afraid of this. I'm attacking his queen. You don't have time to attack me. And I'm ultimately going to take away your resources so you won't have resources to attack me either. If you just do something random like castle, or if you proceed to attack, not only can I take the bishop here, but I can fork your queen and your knight. So I've got many possibilities brewing here. Many possibilities brewing here, and it may be starting to unwind in my favor. And look at this. This is a nice structurally sound position where things are defending themselves well. There's still a lot of pent-up danger in the position. Like if this knight were to move somewhere, even if it takes here and I take back, then this pawn is under a lot of fire. So I like the way my position is. I really like my position. He would have to play this move and this move to get anywhere near my king. And even if he plays this and then takes, I mean, it's just way too slow. It's just way too slow. Deal with the threat to your queen first and foremost, and then we can talk. Again, to be fair, I definitely outrate this guy, but given the losing streak I've been on, I'm not taking this game for granted at all. Because it's almost like I've forgotten how to play chess. Actually, not like I've forgotten. It's like my understanding of chess disintegrated. And possibly in a good way, because it leaves room, I think, in future for a new understanding of chess to develop. So right now my threat is to play f6, forking these 2 pieces. That's my threat. Meanwhile, his king looks, I don't know if it's, in no man's land more than mine. My king's in a corner, but it maybe is a bit boxed in. I just don't think he has the time to create any threats against my king. My queen will easily defend here. After I play f6, my queen joins the defense horizontally. My rooks are both here. Also after f6, and take this knight off the board, my king can just come here and waltz away and go sit in the other corner of the board if I want. I probably have time to do that kind of stuff, depending on what he does. And yes, I've only got 2 minutes on the board, but I also get 15 seconds every move, and in general, I think things are looking good. So he moves the queen away. Understandable move. Now I can attack the queen again, which also defends the e5 pawn, gains another tempo, and gives my rook some breathing room. And then after that, I can try and take this off the board. I can also play this move right away, hitting the knight, but then the knight might come here, and that's a bit annoying. I can take right away. So I'm going to play this. I'm going to play this, hitting the queen, supporting this pawn, and preparing essentially just to take this knight. Now I can probably take it with this knight, and when he takes back, then I could even take with the bishop, and when he takes back, take with the queen. And in that scenario, I've gotten a lot of pieces off the board. My queen is in a nice position. The problem is then his bishop comes here. That's a little bit annoying. But I don't have to go down that path if I don't want. Certainly don't have to go down that path if I don't want. Now he could bring his queen back to a couple of different positions, but his lone queen there does not bother me. brings his queen all the way back here instead. So now I could actually consider a move like this. Don't think it does much though at the moment. So probably just takes is fine. Probably just taking there is fine. I could also not. You know, I could also do something different, but it's a pretty good knight. It's quite a strong knight. If I take and he takes with a pawn, that's what I'm going to do, because he's going to end up with all these pawns on dark squares, against which my dark squared bishop wasn't really going to be doing much anyway. So I'm just going to take, simplifies the position, and then this knight can, you know, come up this way if it wants, or I might bring it back this way. And I'm just going to sit tight. Go back to the old tactic of sitting tight and saying, you tried to attack me once, it backfired. Now you have even less than what you had before. You want to try it again? And we'll see what he wants to do. I might just bring my rooks into the game, for example. Firstly, we've got to see which pawn he wants to take with. I would think this is more natural, but I can also potentially play this in future. I'm going to start like this. It's a quick move. And now what I love about my position, I think it's one of those relatively structurally sound positions where lots of different moves are going to be good. But what I like about this is it moves the knight out of the way of the bishop. So this bishop that's been sitting here is now going to come to life. It defends this pawn. If this pawn moves forward attacking the bishop, sure, you can take the pawn, but my bishop's becoming more and more alive. You know, if you ever try and move this, there could be trouble. Also, I can play this now, and I don't drop this bishop. And playing this also threatens to play this, which again closes off his queen. Now, if he plays this, I think my move is just going to be to advance my pawn one step further. Now, I might want to put my knight here, but there it does block. It does block my bishop. If he pushes this again, I could do something like this. Lots of options, not a lot of time. So I think this is probably nice. If he pushes, then I can take, but I don't want to take because that opens up my king. I could also just move my king right now. Move my king, that could be a really high class move, like I was saying before, and just dance it away. Or I could do this, not quite because he takes. But this might be nice. And if he does this, then I just say, mate, I couldn't give two rats. Do have to be careful though. So let's be a bit careful. Do have to be careful. We could play this. Then if he takes, I take with my knight. He brings the queen in. But my queen comes along there as well. I think there we're actually okay. It's really quite a close call. I'm going to move my knight, just so my queen has unobstructed access here. I think it's more important than any kind of forays up here with my bishop at the moment. If this, I just want to be able to keep things shut, or just move my king, and then if he gives a check this way, rather than being blocked by my knight and unable to come here because he's checking me there, I'll be able to just continue moving away. Just continue moving. That's a possibility. But also I think if he does this, I think I just play then at that point this g5 idea. I think their g5 is basically the perfect move. If he continues advancing with a check, I could probably just move my king here. Or here. So he's going to do this. I could also just take. If he takes with the rook, got to be just slightly careful, that's all. So I'm going to play this. Just going to keep this shut. If he does this, the only question is, do I come here or do I run? Probably here, because I don't see any way for him to up the pressure from that point in time. My rooks are all here. Everything's fine. My king will use his pawn as a shelter. And that's what I'm going to do. these pawns all make his dark squared bishop useless. My knight's doing a good job there. He can't dislodge it easily at all, if at all. And now, okay, we're playing on. So take, take, take doesn't quite work, but let me play this to start with. So now I don't even have to worry. If he does that, I'm just going to take. But this might be coming up soon. This might be coming up soon. This is probably going to come soon. Hit the queen, and when the queen moves, come here. That's a nice option, forcing the win of an exchange. So I just need to make sure I'm safe. Even though I've got 11 seconds, it should be enough. I can also come here with my knight if I want to be fancy, attack this pawn. He can't take because he's pinned, and then jump back this way, but what's the point of being fancy? I'd rather not be fancy now. I'd rather just win. I could bring my king up here as well, just to block him off, basically entirely, prevent him from opening this side of the board at all. That might be quite nice. I think I like that. You can't move this pawn means you can't get the queen in the position. You can't get the rook in the position. I'm on a light square, so your bishop's useless. Now I am threatening this, which hits the pawn, and then I come back, check, and hit the bishop, and now he can't even sacrifice the exchange by taking the knight with his rook. So I think now I actually really like this move, hitting this pawn. If he responds just by moving the king, well, I still just sit, my knight just comes and sits up here, sitting on his position, and that's nice. There's also, should be noted, there's a fork in this position right away, which may also unveil this bishop. So e3 is another threat. In addition to this, e3 just hits the queen and the bishop. If the bishop takes, I take, queen takes, and then bishop takes here. That's a nice option. Take, 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 take. That's certainly a possibility. There's also this. I'm going to do this one. Structurally slightly less sound, but I really like it. And I don't have to take this pawn. But it just means, really, his rook's here to support the advance of this pawn. This pawn cannot advance anymore because I'm going to take this rook off the board the moment it moves. So I like that. And you know what I'm going to do? Since I have a million options, I'm just going to advance this pawn. And I'm going to put pressure on your queen. Then next I might advance this pawn and start opening your king. But in the meantime, everything here is looking really safe for me. Really safe. This pawn is immobile. You've got no way to attack my king. I'm structurally sound. You're starting to run low on time. The position's dangerous for you. If I just even advance this pawn, I'm threatening to take and then take. If you advance further, I mean, that's really dangerous right there, just pushing this pawn forward. That's really dangerous right there. Yeah, your queen's here, but it doesn't do anything from there at all. It doesn't do anything. Oh, you're attacking this, are you? Well, good for you. Tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to come here, defend this pawn just to be extra safe. Attack this pawn. This pawn can't move because I'm just going to take it off the board with a check. And this threat still remains. So, once again, my position is as stable as they come. Although I don't have a lot of time, I have no danger in this position. Okay, good for you. Good for you defending that pawn. I can even come here now and threaten that again. That's one way to do things. But this is another way. Let me just see which way I prefer because there's a lot of options. There's also this check, which could be really nice. Lots of options. I think this one's the one I prefer. He can play this, but he just drops this pawn. And, this might be an option in future as well. This is an option. I've got millions of options. Wait, this is not an option because of check. This is certainly an option. I've just got a million options here. And if nothing else, I can just bring the queen back and say, you make a move. Because there's nothing you can do. Okay, so I can't take this pawn. But you know what? Fine, I'll come back. I'll just come back to where I was before. Don't care. Don't care. Now, another option I could have done was I could have gone for this check. And then I could have played this. But like I say, why should I care? Maybe I will, after all, play this move. I just needed a bit of time to calculate. So if he takes with the pawn, The only thing I don't like about it is that it opens his rook, and maybe he can then come up with a sacrifice. So maybe what I'll do is bring this rook across here, just to further solidify my king's position and make sure I'm absolutely safe. Let's do that. I'm safe. You can't even sacrifice anything here. You can put as many pieces on this file as you want, but you can never take your own pawn. So, and nor can you advance the pawn, nor is your pawn doing anything to attack me. So you're just wasting time here. You're just wasting time. And I might just advance. Oh, you want me to have the option to push this pawn forward, do you? That's fine. I'm happy to have a passed pawn. Push it towards the promoting squares. No problem. Keep in mind, this is now hanging. Everything is falling apart for him. He's getting low on the clock. And this is all, I think, it's not all the result of how I played. That's actually more a result of how he played rather poorly. So I'm going to take this pawn now. I'm going to take the pawn now. This one's also hanging. Everything is falling to bits for him. I could even sacrifice this for 2 pawns if I want, and then push these pawns. I've got a million options. But I'll probably just take this pawn next, and then this one. Or maybe I'll give a check, because this looks almost like checkmate. That's very nearly a checkmate. It's not 100% checkmate, but it's just, nearly there. So what about check? If he comes here, I can then just come here and go for a queen trade. That's perfectly fine. But there's so many different options. Is he threatening anything here? No, he's not. You know what? I'm just going to push this pawn. I've got to be a little bit careful. Nah, I don't got to be too careful at all. Just going to push this pawn. It's not the best move. It's not the most threatening move, but it emphasizes the point that I can basically do whatever I want. I'm not even afraid of this. I can move away with check. And after whatever he does next, my rook's defending this. My queen can always come back here. It's what we're going to have. So I'll just go check. We'll see where he goes. And then I can just come here. Sit on the position a little bit longer. Or will I come here? I think I'll come here. Threaten his queen, but also, most importantly, I'm threatening to go check and then win the rook. So that can be nice. And we'll see what he wants to do. If he plays this, I take, so there's no danger there. If he plays this, I take, there's no danger there. A very comfortable position. A very comfortable position. Oh, he's done something. He's taken this. But that means check can happen. Now, I do have to be a bit careful, because if he takes this check, I move down. Well, there's still no checkmate, not even here. So he has to move. Probably like this, it's the only square. Literally has to give this away. And then I go check. And then I can probably just defend my other rook so that he's got nothing. He's going to run out of time. You know what? Here's another check. Let's fork these two guys while we're at it. This might even end up being a mate, because here I can go check. Forcing him here. And you know what's nice? I can use this piece, which is currently threatened. I can move it away with check. That's nice. Always nice when you can do that. Not a lot of squares for him. Maybe this one. Yeah, I suppose you can use that one there too. Now, how do I want to proceed? I can give this check. Very close to mate indeed. I could do this. You know what? I think that's nice enough. Let's go with check. Of course, I could take the rook. Everything here is defended, so no danger. I'm just waiting for a mate to... There's probably been many mates already, but I'm just waiting for one that I can find. And now at this point, I can even come here with check. That's pretty nice. That's pretty nice. I could do it this way as well. What's the best way to do this? Probably with my queen. So on the next move, I can go check and then take the queen. Or if you come back this way, well, I suppose you can do that. Yeah, you can do that too. I suppose you can do that. Why don't I just attack the queen now? Take a step back. Attack the queen. Everything else is safe, right? Everything else is safe. Let's just emphasize that point. Everything is so safe that I don't even want to go for mate anymore. I'm just going to protect my bishop. Hit your queen. Your rook still hangs as well, mate, just so you know. You can't take anything here. You can't take anything. Also, I'm about to come in and mate you, so best be careful. Best be careful. Oh, you want to give me the queen? Yeah, you can give me the queen. I'll take it. You want to give me the rook as well? It's not going to help you much more, but you can. You can try and get your queen here. I'll probably take it as well. Oh yeah, you want to give me that? Okay, I'll tell you what, I'll take it. You want to give me the pawn? Game over. It fell apart for him. Now, how do I want to take? I'll take with the king, get it active for the endgame. And you know what? I'm just going to get a queen here. Let's push this forward. Queening square is defended, which means I've got a queen on the next move. Thank you very much. And this game's all over. I actually spotted an amazing queen sacrifice here. Boom. Give him a queen for free. Just give him a queen because he hasn't given up. There we go. He's given up. All right. Finally, that was a very long game, really. Longer than it should have been. But I think I played all right. That's kind of the most important thing. I think if we go back to the start and have a look, I think I basically played a solid game. We'll wait for the evaluation bar to catch up. Obviously, at the start of the game, white starts off with a very minuscule advantage. And as we played on in these first few moves, that advantage basically stays where it has been. I just develop, not really aware of the opening theory here, but it's roughly equal, and how could it be anything other than roughly equal? I castle. And it's a roughly equal position. He develops his knight, I develop my knight. Not afraid of really anything much in this position. And here I played this nice move, nice and slow. Maybe gives him a slight advantage, but nothing much more than what he started with as white, essentially negligible. And he brings his knight into the position. This knight did end up being a little bit annoying, but it really didn't cause any massive troubles. I could play around it, and the computer says, objectively, I'm fine. So here I decided to, you know what, I'm pretty stable. I'm just going to get my queen out, where it actually comes in with a threat to take, and then, or, take, and take. Again, white still has the opening advantage, the first mover advantage, essentially. But then he started playing in an aggressive way, and not a bad way necessarily at all. Objectively, it's fine, but this is exactly what I've been sort of realizing these last few games or through my losing streak. Objectively, it might be fine for a computer, but for a human being, just because the computer's happy with it doesn't mean that a human being's going to understand it. And from a human perspective, this is the kind of move that creates structural weaknesses in a position and commits you to an attack that very often requires immense precision, and where one wrong step, which can be very easy to make, can send you falling to pieces. You're on a high wire tightrope, and there's only one correct move, and everything else is disastrous. Those are not the positions I want to have. I want to have positions where I'm on a pavement, and I can walk a little bit to the left, a little bit to the right, plenty of room to move. You can go a bit wrong, and you're still fine. Even if you fall, you're only falling from the height of your own body. So here I started to think, all right, he's going to come at me. Let him come. I don't see any danger here specifically right now, so I'm just going to continue on. I'm going to open up the other side of the board, but in a way that's structurally sound. My only backwards pawn is this one. I can always fix it up in future, no problem. Might end up playing this in future. Everything looks really nice. And he continued on with h4, sort of very aggressive and starting to lash out. And even the computer is saying, objectively, things are actually starting to turn in my favor with this kind of lashing out business. Now, I didn't want him lashing out further, so I played h5 now, just to stop any of those ideas. And the computer seems to think that was a sensible idea, and why not? This is structurally fine. My knight defends the pawn, and my knight doesn't need to go anywhere. It's hard for him to attack the knight, so this is all still very stable, and I'm doing fine. He starts bringing his other knight around. And here, I think I started getting designs of attacking this bishop, which I did, possibly allowing him to take and taking on a slightly strange pawn structure. Objectively now he has a slight advantage. Just to show what I was thinking, I thought that after takes and I take back attacking his knight has to move. Now, where does his knight go was my question. If he comes here, he's potentially walking into a fork. Which I suppose he can allow on the basis that the queen is coming in soon. So sure, that's true. Maybe that's why he has an objective advantage, and maybe that's something that I missed. I think here my idea was to do this. Maybe I was going to play g6. But I do see now that if his queen comes in, there's a lot of danger here, and now I'm just going to be losing. So I do have to be careful, and maybe here I would have played g6, which is another move that I had mentioned, just to prevent this idea. But you can see now he has succeeded in opening my king side and creating structural imbalances, and at the very least he can double back, take this knight with a tempo on my bishop, and I'm basically regretting the move that I played, which was this knight move. I had thought, you know what, it's going to be fine. Even if he does something like this, well, should be fine, I can come here. But even in this position, the fact that he can bring the queen in probably means that I've gone wrong. So the learning here is, structurally speaking, having played h5, it's fine, but I kind of need to keep this knight here to guard. And as we see, as the game went on, a couple moves later, since he missed his opportunity there, a couple moves later, after take, and I developed my bishop, and he jumped in here, I really started to appreciate the threat of this queen entrance, and I dropped my knight back to where it was, which kind of emphasizes the fact that moving it up here in the first place was wrong. I had to admit that, retreat was my best option. But once I did retreat, I was relatively happy that my position was still really under control, and that, I was playing in a way that was stable. I was biding my time, and I was going to wait and see what he wanted to do. Given that his king's in the center, is he going to castle over here? Is he going to castle here where I might open things up quickly? It's up to him. And what did he do? Well, he made this, what I'm pretty sure is a mistake. Computer definitely agrees. It's just had that smell, the smell of a mistaken move. And I just took. Even though it allows his queen to now come in, what I saw immediately was that at the very least I can play g6. And I think g6 would be completely fine. Computer agrees that g6 is fine. I still have a nice advantage there. But ultimately I ended up finding what I think is probably the better move, which is just giving the knight back to f6, attacking the queen, defending this square where he would otherwise have checkmate. And you can see the computer agrees this knight f6 move was better. Moves the queen out of the neighborhood. He tries to keep it in the neighborhood with g5, and that's fine. Now, an interesting moment again, because now I do move the knight back, I believe. I move the knight back, again, with a tempo on the queen this time. And because it's with the tempo and the queen, and because he doesn't have a knight here anymore, I think his queen being in the neighborhood is much less deadly than it was before. And after he takes and I take back, I'm threatening this fork immediately, so I think from here things became a lot more clarified. I attacked that queen and said, keep moving, buddy. And once he moved, I think it was a nice idea to take with my bishop, giving up my dark squared bishop that would otherwise be just hemmed in by all these dark pawns, and holding on to my knight. Then I had to do something useful with my position, and I thought, move my knight to make my bishop a little bit more useful, and also potentially bring it over here in the case that it needs to help out. And he needed to try, which he did, to open up the position towards my king. And things were scary for a moment. Here, in fact, I decided I want my queen to be able to participate in defense in case I need it, so I moved my knight again, this time a little bit more towards the center of the board. And as he moved his pawn forward, I decided I'm just going to keep everything shut. Now, ideally, I would have given myself more time than 18 seconds. But as it turned out, 18 seconds in this position was plenty, considering that I also get an extra 15 seconds each move. I just kept the position shut, not allowing him to open this up, bringing his rook into the game. No, sir. I play g6, your pawn is useless. Even if you check me, I'm just going to come here, and you can't touch me. That was my basic argument. It looks like the computer agrees. It's a huge advantage for me. He didn't end up pushing the pawn further forward. He castled, and that's when I decided even better. Firstly, stop the pawn from advancing at all, and then once again, completely stop it, so it physically can't move even if it wants to. Now my king's just entirely safe. These pawns just super solid structure, keeping my king safe. He can never get to me on this side of the board. His bishop's entirely useless, staring at his own pawns, unable to get into the position, unable to attack my light-colored king. And he tries to, organize an attack against me, but he misses this fork. If it wasn't for that fork, the other move I was considering was this, attacking this pawn. And I think that's a very nice move as well. But I thought, once he moves the king, even though my knight gets up here and it's a bloody beautiful position to have my knight in, there's absolutely not. Look at this. It's just gorgeous. It's a beautiful aesthetic construction. What's he going to do? But I just thought, rather than do that, which is perfectly fine, I'll just make this fork occur, get some trades, and then we'll play on from there. So I think as long as we see this evaluation bar stay firmly in the black, it means I didn't muck anything up. He came over here, unable to touch me though. I just defend this pawn while also attacking this pawn, keeping my position very solid. Now I come up here, threatening a big check. He attacks me and I just came back because I have the luxury to do that. He's trying to get something going here, but there's just nothing to get going. He's got nothing. I bring my other rook in just to make sure in future I can always defend this pawn. And I'm glad I did that. He tries to get something going here, but I just, again, keep this whole area shut. I'm not going to allow him to trade and open up his rooks towards my king. Instead, I'm going to have a passed pawn threatening to become a queen, which it did in the future. He blockades. Did you forget about this? You made a weakness before, now I'm just going to take it. He came here, defending this. Defending this. And now, I just thought, I'll just push this pawn forward. There's nothing much to do. And look at the evaluation. It's huge. And that's why, even though I only had 17 seconds, there was just no concern in this position, basically. Of course, you can never fall asleep. I've paid the price for that before. In fact, it's the reason I didn't come equal first in last year's Canberra Chess Club Championship, was because I fell asleep in a winning position and ended up drawing the game, costing me a half point. And I ended up, if I had an extra half point in that competition, I would have been equal first. So you can never fall asleep. And I don't think I did. He moves his king, and I really liked this move. Just kind of like the Tal move. If you go back a few videos, you'll see the first video I've put in of the Tal series, where I'm going through this book, The Life and Games of Mikhail Tal. He played a move similar to this, and he said to emphasize the poor position of the queen. Cuts the queen off from its defense of this pawn. This is an important pawn, not just because it's a central pawn, but because it comes with a check that also wins the rook. It's true, I gave up this pawn, and I didn't even do that consciously, but I did consciously know that I was going to win this pawn and a rook, which is obviously a much greater consideration. I was aware that after this move, if I take this rook and it's not check, then he can take this rook and it is check. But even in that case, my king could move down and I'm still winning. Now I can't show it because, as it happens, taking this rook does come with check. Now it's mate in 8. Let's see how many moves it took me to finish the game here. I played this for what it was worth. Then I played this. Then I played this. And then this. All looking pretty good. The mate counter is coming down. Oh, now it's back to mate in 7. So what should I have done here? Probably the rook move, I suppose. But, it really doesn't matter. And here, where he's attacking my bishop, although I could just take his rook, and then he takes my bishop. I could just push this pawn forward, he takes my bishop, and I get a queen. There's a million options. I just decided, you know what? I'm going to save my bishop with a tempo on the queen. The queen cannot do anything to me at all, which was true. He decided to take my rook. Well, fine. Here he just threw all his pieces away. And I got a queen. And then I decided, you know what? I don't need 2 queens. You can have one of them. And that was enough for him to get the gist. The game was over. And he resigned. So there we have it. The losing streak is over. I'd love to play one more. But I think that's going to do for today. So tune back in next time and we'll see you then. Cheers.